everybody. Welcome to the Leon County DEC Candidate Forum for Tallahassee County Commission District 3 election. My name is Dana Brooks. I am a trial lawyer here in Tallahassee with the Facek Brooks Law Firm. We have offices across North Florida, and we are very active in our community, and we want to know more about the people who lead us in our community. And that is part of my interest in hosting and moderating this debate today. I've had the pleasure of meeting Commissioner Minor and his lovely family around town, run into them, but I have not met Mr. Joey Lamar. So I am excited to meet you, sir, and learn more from both of you about your platforms and how you feel like you're going to be the best choice for this commission seat. So welcome today.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with a little housekeeping. If something happens and we lose this Zoom broadcast or whatever, it'll be coming back on. So reach out to us, send us a message or a chat if we need to be alerted to something going on about how you're receiving this broadcast today. So we've got a packed agenda. So let's go ahead and get started. As a reminder to everyone, let's please keep the forum cordial and respectful. We're Democrats, we do that. Okay, first up, we're going to allow for a 2-minute introductory comment from each of the candidates. We're going to go in alphabetical order of last names. So first up, we're going to have Mr. Joey Lamar, and then we'll follow that with Commissioner Rick Minor. Welcome, Mr. Lamar.
Well, thank you, Dana. It is really great to be here, and I want to thank you guys from the Leon County Democratic Party for hosting this. It's important that we talk about the issues that are most affecting our community. I'm running because I see a better vision for Leon County District 3. I see a vision where there's no homelessness. I see a vision where we have reduced rate in crime. I see a vision where the people of this community get to decide what happens in their own neighborhoods. I see a vision where we invest in our local infrastructure and children are able to walk to the bus stop safely and not have to jump into ditches. I see a vision where we have affordable housing. And so we're really focused on those things. Two of the top issues in Leon County right now are homelessness and crime. Homelessness is out of control, especially on the North Monroe corridor. And our plan is to provide housing. Once we provide housing to people, we can get them stabilized and provide any type of service that they need, whether that be mental health, whether that be substance abuse. But ultimately, the goal is to get them out of that temporary housing into permanent housing of their own. As far as crime is a really big issue, and we need to address the components that affect crime or that cause crime, and that's poverty, low-wage jobs, unstable housing. And so we need to focus on those areas if we want to reduce crime, and those are issues that we really want to focus on. And so that's why I'm running, because I see a better vision for Leon County District 3, and I hope you share my vision in seeing that better vision.
Great. Thank you so much, sir. And I meant to tell you, both of you will have 2 minutes for your responsive portions, and then I will be monitoring it. You'll just hear the little, iPhone little signal go off, and that'll let you know that your time is coming to a conclusion. All right, Mr. Commissioner Minor, you're up next with your introductory remarks. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brooks. And thank you to the Leon DEC, the Democratic clubs, and everyone else that's sponsoring this forum today. Leon County is a great place to live. There's no place I'd rather raise my 2 daughters. But like many communities throughout the nation, we have our share of challenges right now. We've got poverty, crime, food insecurity, affordable housing shortages. And so we need a serious candidate that has demonstrated proven leadership, experience, and qualifications to handle these issues. We've made some really great progress during my first term, these last 4 years. We've secured funding to revitalize North Monroe. We've obtained funding for Tharp Street. I've led a program that will help us take the hungriest neighborhoods in Leon County and work with those neighbors to increase access to nutritious food. We've fought back on crime. I support the Sheriff's Initiative for All In, and as well as the Commission on Status of Men and Boys, and have started a program for online training for anti-human trafficking. We'll talk a lot about that over the forum now. You'll see we're doing some really good work in the midst of some serious challenges here in Leon County. I've got a strong Democratic background with this group, as well as Democrats throughout the state and country. I served as a former chair of the Leon DEC, has also served on the exec committee and central committee of the Florida Democratic Party, and actually worked for the FDP as its policy director for a while. When I was younger, I was the executive director of the Florida Young Democrats and also the president of the Leon County Young Democrats. I also have done work for political candidates. I was the policy director for Janet Reno and Bill McBride, and also the presidential candidate, Bill Richardson. But the thing that you all may remember the most is some of the work that I've done alongside you to help get Democrats elected. Monica O'Neill is on the line. She and I, going back to 2004, I think, for the presidential John Kerry race, I remember her and I being side by side making phone calls to voters, helping to get Democrats elected. So I've got a long history with this group. It's good to be back. We've done some really good work here in Leon County, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to talk during this forum and earn your support for 4 more years.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, candidates. As a reminder to our attendees, we'll have some time to take audience questions at the end of the program. So for our viewers, if you'll type your questions as you think of them in the chat feature, we'll have co-hosts who are going to monitor the questions as they come in. So if you want to ask your question live today, that's also an option. So please use the raise hand function, and that's found at the bottom of your Zoom screen and the reactions button. Push reactions and the option to raise your hand is going to come up. The co-hosts are going to prompt me and let me know who wants to ask their questions live. I'll call your name, you'll be unmuted, and we will get to as many of the audience questions as time permits. So it's now time for the major Q&A portion of the program. As a reminder to the candidates, you'll have 2 minutes to respond to each question. I'll be keeping time and I'll notify you when your time is up. I'm probably just going to do this initially, just a hand signal, just so I don't interrupt you, sirs. And then that'll let you know your 2 minutes is up and we need to wrap it up. Please respect the time limits. It's okay to finish your comments in under 2 minutes, but please don't feel pressure to take every answer to the time limit. We're going to begin alphabetically by first name and rotate who goes from there. So moving on, we're going to go now to our first topic, and that is affordable housing. Okay, Mr. Lamar. We're going to start with you. You've said the county is not doing enough to solve the affordable housing crisis. What do you think the county should do about affordable housing? And tell us what specific actions you'll take if you're elected to achieve innovative solutions so that county residents can find housing costing less than 30% of their basic gross income, sir.
Well, thank you for the question. That's a terrific question. I know affordable housing very well because I'm living through it right now. I am trying to buy a house in Leon County, and on one salary or one income, I just simply cannot do it. And it's very difficult, to try to, establish roots when, you're basically priced out of the market. And so when you're priced out of the housing market, the renters know that, so they raise the rents. The average rent in Leon County for a 2-bedroom apartment is $1,200. Which is not cheap. And so affordable housing is one of the most important issues that we're not talking about. There are several areas that we can look at to try to tackle affordable housing. You can look at incentivizing developers. You can look at giving vouchers. You can look at, where we're building these units. There are a lot of things that you can do to look at affordable housing, but I don't think we should just look at one approach. This is a very big problem. And anytime you have a problem as big as this, the solution has to be as big as the problem. And so we need to make sure that we're tackling it from every single angle and not just one angle. So it's not a one thing we can do, it's several things we can do to accomplish this problem. And those are the things that we're going to get done when I'm in office. Thank
you, sir. Commissioner Minor, what are the 3 most effective efforts or programs that the county has put into place to address the affordable housing crisis? Tell us what actions you'll take in the next 4 years if you're reelected to achieve the innovative solutions so that county residents can find housing costing less than 30% of their basic gross income.
Thanks very much, Ms. Brooks. And I think my opponent is just simply not aware of some of the things that are being done. There's a great deal of work being done right now to address the affordable housing shortage. We need 11,000 affordable housing units, new ones, by 2045. So we are working very hard. It's one of the highest priorities that we have at the county and at the city to address that. We had a workshop, a joint workshop with both the county and the city commissioners, where we discussed affordable housing and what we're going to do about it. What we did was we directed staff to go ahead and work with the Florida Housing Coalition to develop a new inclusionary housing ordinance for Leon County and for the city, a unique one that would span both jurisdictions. that include in it density bonuses and other motivations to encourage the private sector to develop more affordable housing. State law prevents local governments from forcing developers to build more affordable housing unless they make them whole in some way. In other words, they have to pay for the difference that the developer would lose money on by building affordable housing versus something more expensive. But what we can do is we can incentivize developers to build more affordable housing. And that's what we directed staff to do. Go work with the Florida Housing Coalition, come back to us with those incentive bonuses, real ones that will work, and we'll incorporate that into our ordinances. We also, in February at that workshop, we established a new partnership between the city and the county for state housing initiative partnership funds, SHIP funds. Those are funds that allow people to use those funds to build more affordable housing. One thing that we're doing right now to preserve the existing inventory of affordable housing, because you've got to make sure that the existing stock you have is still habitable. So we are funding, the county and the city do this too. We are funding emergency home repairs and home rehabilitation so that people that are living in affordable housing now are able to keep their homes in good shape. We also have, the county offers down payment assistance so that a new family who might be looking for a starter home can take advantage of county programs that allow them to buy a new home. So those are all the things we're doing. If I get elected for another 4 years, I want to make sure that that inclusionary housing ordinance that comes back is something that is going to be real and substantive, that is going to encourage folks to build more affordable housing. This is one of the highest priorities in the county.
Your time is up, but you'll probably have some more time to finish some of your answers in the future. I want to make sure we.
Time was up 3 minutes ago.
Let's talk now about roads and infrastructure. Commissioner Minor, we'll start with you on this one. Why are so many of the roadway projects approved by the Capital Region Transportation Planning Agency for widening roads? These roads include sections of Crawfordville Highway, Woodville Highway, Orange Avenue, Pensacola Street, Tharp Street, and Ocala Road. Traffic engineering research tells us that wider roads are less safe for drivers, bicyclists, and pedestrians. Widening roads means the destruction of trees and the natural beauty of the Leon County environment. One only has to look at what's happened in Thomasville Road to know that that's true. The Thomasville multi-use path project is what I'm referring to there. Isn't it time that Leon County looked at developing a comprehensive mass transit plan, a plan for moving people and not widening roads for moving cars? What say you on that, sir?
Thank you very much. I agree with the premise of the question. If you look at Gain Street, for example, that was actually a narrowing of lanes, and it's one of the best roadways in downtown. There are some cases where it does make sense for us to widen roads. We have obtained funding for the widening and improvement of Tharp Street over the last, actually it was 2021, last year. If you remember Tharp Street, it basically goes into a bottleneck as you go west. And so that's a heavily trafficked road. That's one example where widening that part of Tharp Street can help out with capacity. But in generally, I agree with the premise of the question. We need to focus on alternative modes of transportation and not put all of our eggs in the automobile basket. For folks that you may have heard about the multimodal transportation district, that's basically a drawn district in downtown Tallahassee, where we are really encouraging both the city, mainly the city, but the county is involved too, to encourage alternative modes of transportation other than cars, bicycles, pedestrians, scooters, those types of things. We need to, and the folks that are of a younger generation than I am really are creating a culture shift in this country and also here in Leon County. They understand that you don't need a car to get from point A to point B every single time. And I think it's encouraging to know that shift is happening. And I believe that the county and the city have been anticipating that and making planning decisions to meet that change in demand.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Lamar, let's flip now to you. Are you for widening roads when they don't make them safer for drivers, bicyclists, and pedestrians, when they require the destruction of trees in the environment? Do you agree with the philosophy of if there are traffic congestion problems, then widening the roads is the best answer? What ideas do you have for comprehensive mass transit plans in Leon County?
Thank you. I just want to say it didn't take my opponent long to already start attacking me. And I will remind him that the entire Leon County Democratic Party, as well as this district, is watching. And so he needs to make sure that his behavior is something that he can be proud of as everyone is watching. And if I were him, I would not be proud of his behavior so far. As far as your question,
Talking about.
as far as your question, we do have a infrastructure problem, and it does pertain to roads. And you look at Old Bainbridge, that's a prime example. It's a very heavily trafficked road. And right now, because we keep building and building, it's cars are lining up and it's taking longer and longer to get to work. And people are starting to cut through neighborhoods because they want to avoid the traffic and it's not safe. We do need to do a better job with our public infrastructure. I am a proponent of making Star Metro free service, because right now Star Metro doesn't even get 10% of their revenues from fares, and they are heavily subsidized. So I think the county should do a better job of subsidizing Star Metro to increase our reliance on public transportation and public infrastructure. And I will also encourage us to look at investing more in our local infrastructure. This year, we only invested $5 million from the capital funds project. That's down from $6.3 million a year ago. So our funds need to be going up when we talk about investing in our local infrastructure and not down. And I'm going to be fighting to make sure that we get that number up to around 10% of the annual operating budget.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir. We're going to start now talking about Doak Campbell. So we're going to start with you, Mr. Lamar. Do you believe the $20 million blueprint grant made to FSU for the football stadium is a good example of economic development for residents in District 5 and in Leon County in general? How, if you're elected, will you now move forward to obtain the resources required for the unaddressed and unfunded community needs of nonprofits and local businesses?
That's an excellent question. So I was not in favor of it. And as a matter of fact, I spoke at the Blueprint meeting in opposition to this. One of the things that we have to look at, I believe that if you are in need, then the government should help you out. And I don't believe that FSU was in need. And like your question mentioned, we took a lot of money away from our local businesses. Ford was looking for an opportunity to come and build their electric vehicle plant. They were looking for somewhere in the nation to build their electric vehicles. Ford is a great company, a great American company with great paying jobs. And we could have had an opportunity to at least make an offer or an overture to them. And now we're not able to do that. You look at some of the things that are on the horizon right now for Florida State. They're looking at possibly going to the SEC. If they do that, they will strike a new media deal that will be worth $100 million annually just from the TV rights, not counting the bowl revenue, which will probably go up to another $30 million. So you're looking at a school that could potentially, from the athletic department, be looking at $130 million annually. And so I would respectfully request, if they make that move and they sign those deals, for them to return the $27 million back to the taxpayers so that we can focus on improving our local businesses and improving our local infrastructure. And so that's a very big deal. But if they're able to do that, I would respectfully request for them to return the money.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Commissioner Minor, now to you on this topic. Do you believe the $20 million blueprint grant made to the FSU for the football stadium is a good example of economic development for residents in District 5 and Leon County in general? And how, if you're reelected, will you now move forward to obtain the resources required for the unaddressed and unfunded community and business needs of our area?
Thanks, Ms. Brooks. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. I oppose the money going to the Doak Campbell Stadium, the $20 million plus the $7 million to service the debt. Initially, I supported it because FSU is such a huge economic driver for us. It's the #1 economic driver in Tallahassee. After the key vote, I heard from just about everybody about the project. And the reasons that they gave me were very sound reasons to oppose it. The opportunity cost is too high. They didn't want their taxpayer dollars, blueprint dollars, going to that project. And so one of the good things about a commissioner is that they need to listen to their constituents. And I think I've got a good reputation for being a commissioner that really listens to the people he works with, people who live in the district. So once I heard, I met with people, I had coffee with them on the phone, emails. I decided that I needed to pay attention to what my voters wanted us to do, which is to oppose that project. The ratio at that time that I got of people that opposed it to supported it was 28 people in opposition to 1 in support. So I made that decision. I announced it before the meeting, hoping that some of my colleagues would also fall toward my way and vote against it. But in the end, a majority of people voted to grant those dollars to FSU. It was a mistake. We need those dollars for other projects. And if I get elected for another 4 years, we can try to ask FSU for that money back. I think it's not realistic for them to think they will give it back. But we need to work to make sure that the blueprint dollars that come in for economic development are used to maximize the benefit of those dollars so that we can build our economy, raise incomes, and bring more commerce to this county. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, we're going to turn now to another topic you both brought up. We're going to call this the Anatomy of a Homicide Report from the Leon County Sheriff's Office. Commissioner Minor, we'll start with you. In an effort to better understand the homicides in our community, Sheriff McNeil assembled a project team to develop this research-based report. It reviews the homicides reported in Leon County between 2015 and 2020. It contains a summary of ongoing LCSO efforts and the following recommendations. The first one is this: we must address these individuals where they are and what circumstances they're in. And number 2, our response must be unified and collaborative. And all in Leon, response of people, agencies, and organizations working collaboratively to reduce violence in Leon County. Commissioner Minor, please summarize who were identified as being the most at risk of committing or being involved in violent crime, and what will you do to achieve this call to action to reduce violent crime in Leon County?
Thank you very much, Ms. Brooks. So I fully support what Sheriff McNeil has been doing. The All-In Initiative is essentially asking everyone in the community to work together with law enforcement to help us fight crime. Now, the Anatomy of a Homicide Report, if you haven't had a chance to read it, folks that might be watching, please go back and at least take a look at the executive summary. It basically says that we have a very well-defined demographic, young men and boys that are most at risk for engaging in violence and in crime as they grow up. What the All-In Initiative is doing is bringing the entire community together to help address that problem. But then the Sheriff McNeil came to us and asked us to help sponsor and fund the Commission on the Status of Men and Boys. He asked us, the City of Tallahassee, the school board, to help fund that project. We unanimously supported that because the Commission on Status of Men and Boys is going to direct its focus on that group of at-risk men and boys to give them alternatives toward criminal activity, toward some promising futures. Another thing that I've done is I've led the county commission in funding free online anti-human trafficking training. When there have been more arrests on the North Monroe I-10 corridor for human trafficking than anywhere else in the county. In response to that, I pushed for funding from the county commission, which agreed with me, and we now have that online training available right now at STACPRO, STACPRO.org. You can take that training right now. Help us learn. You can learn what it's these signs, the signals of potential human trafficking incidents. So you can call it in and help us fight back on human trafficking. Let's rescue the victims and let's hold those human traffickers accountable. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Lamar, I'm going to ask you the same question. Will you please summarize who were identified as being the most at risk of committing or being involved in violent crime, and what will you do to achieve the recommended goals and strategies to reduce violent crime in Leon County?
Well, thank you for that excellent question. And I have read Walt McNeil's Anatomy of a Homicide, an excellent report, just an absolutely fantastic report. And so one of the things and I do support his All-In Initiative as well, but I don't think that the fight against crime should just be law enforcement. Again, when we start looking at crime and you want to prevent crime, you have to look at the things that contribute to crime. And that is a lack of education, that's low wage jobs, and that's also unstable housing. And so those things are not related to law enforcement. So we need the community, and we need policies in place that help achieve these goals so we can work with Sheriff McNeil to achieve our goal of reducing crime. And Rick talked about the North Monroe corridor being out of control with crime, and it is absolutely out of control. And that's because there's been 4 years of not doing anything. And so we can't come in the last 3 months and say, oh, look what I'm doing, and ignore 4 years of nothing being done on that corridor. And so it's representing a difference in between his values and what he prioritizes and what the district prioritizes. Because when I knock doors, the first thing that people talk about is crime. The next thing they talk about is homelessness. So we have to get a commissioner in there who is listening to the people, to his constituents, and is then taking the necessary action to make sure that we achieve the goals that the community wants. And I am that person to get the job done.
Thank you, sir.
Respond to that.
I'm sorry.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, let me give you 15 seconds to respond, sir.
Great. What my opponent is saying is just simply uninformed. Go to my website, rickminer.com, go to the accomplishments page. You will see a list of things that we've done for North Monroe regarding crime, the task force that I created, and other things, with links to documents proving that we've done some work. I've got real evidence to show our good work that we've done together. My opponent is making stuff up to benefit himself.
Okay, I just want to remind everybody, let's keep it cordial. Everybody's watching this cringes when they hear things like that. So let's keep our decorum and our cordiality up. Let's turn now to the topic of recycling in Leon County. In fact, this is we've got a question in the chat that's coming in from someone who's indicated that they're disappointed in the waste pickup and wants to know more about what the county's doing on trash pickup, recycling, yard waste, that sort of thing. But our specific questions to you, and we'll start with you, Mr. Lamar. Is recycling working in Leon County? Why or why not? Do you know how the county deals with its hazardous waste? What recommendations do you have to improve protecting our environment by doing a better job of recycling here? And you may start now.
Thank you for the question. I think we are doing a fair job on recycling. However, the thing that worries me more, or the thing that troubles me more, is the amount of trash that I see just out and around in the county. And it's one of the reasons why my campaign, and we were the only campaign to do this in this race, we had a community cleanup day where we went on the corner of Sherrill Road and Fulton Street, and we spent time picking up trash and cleaning up our community because we want to keep Leon County safe. We want to keep it beautiful. It is a lovely county. And so we want to make sure that we're doing that. The other thing is, we talked about recycling. Recycling is the third step. So first we want to reduce our use, and then we want to reuse if possible, and then we want to recycle. So we have a 3-pronged approach for looking at those issues. The other thing is, when we're looking at that trash, we can also use this as an opportunity to create jobs for people who may be just out of prison, people who may have disabilities but can still function in everyday society, a job for them to earn a great living and be a positive impact in our community. So we don't really like to look at problems in my campaign. That's not what we call them. We call them opportunities. And so this is an opportunity for us to create jobs and uplift our community. And that is what we are all about.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, sir. Commissioner Minor, we'll turn to you now. Is recycling working in Leon County? Why or why not? What does it cost? Are we even breaking even? Are we paying others to recycle for us? Where are we shipping our hazardous waste? What's your position on this recycling issue?
Recycling is working better here in Leon County than in other communities in Florida. First of all, the public has been terrific. We've got a community here that really wants to recycle, and so that's really encouraging. The issues we have are down the pipeline. China a few years ago basically refused to accept recycled products. And the ones that they did, they actually said that they would accept them at a higher rate. So what that meant is that the profit margins of recycling companies throughout the country and around the globe were actually shrunk dramatically. Many of them shut down. Many communities in Florida and around the country might still accept recycling products, but they don't recycle them. They're too expensive to recycle. What we've done in Leon County is we've been contracting with a private company called Marpan, which many of you know is on South Monroe. They are still accepting recycled materials from our contract that we have with them, and they're still recycling them. It's tougher financially for them because of what China has done on the other side of the planet. But we're doing a pretty good job relative to other cities in Florida and in the nation. One thing, I've been really committed to sustainability for many, many years. My campaign is a carbon neutral campaign. So we calculate our carbon footprint, and then at the end, we donate an offset amount to a carbon fund to negate the effects of the carbon gases generated. In 2020, I persuaded 21 local candidates to go carbon neutral. I'm hoping that more local candidates will do that here during this election cycle, but I'm on board. I'm committed to do it yet again. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir. We're going to turn now to the Children's Services Council, what we commonly refer to as CSC of Leon County. We're going to have a reduced time on this. Each of you will have 1 minute to respond to these questions. There are children in Leon County who are in critical need of additional assistance. So let's look at a few numbers here. 55,000 children in our city. 19.7% of them are living in poverty. Only 62% of children are ready for kindergarten, and 11,600 are food insecure. Introductory information on the Children's Services Council for people who are not as aware of this. It was approved by a majority of the Leon County electorate in 2020. The council was established as a special independent district authorized by Florida statutes. Appointed members are approved by the governor, and it's funded by annually levying county property taxes, and that can't exceed the maximum millage rate of 1/2 millage. The current level is 0.375 millage. The Children's Services Council of Leon County is not an elected body. The council structure has raised concerns about non-elected officials determining how monies would be spent to support children's services and programs in our county, and that are funded by property taxes paid by the citizens of our county. So candidates, I want to ask you 3 questions about the council, and I'll ask them to you one at a time. Again, you've got up to 1 minute short answers for each of these questions. I'm going to start with Commissioner Minor. First question, do you think the current structure of the council provides sufficient input and guidance from the citizens of Leon County?
Thank you, Ms. Brooks. Right now, the structure of the CSC is comprised of 10 members. 5 of them were appointed by the governor from a list that the county commission provided to them. I have attended many of the meetings that the Children's Services Council has had with neighborhoods. I started a food insecurity program where we identified the 10 hungriest neighborhoods, and then the city, the county, and Children's Services Council went to those neighborhoods, and I went to many of those to hear from the public on their issues with poverty and food insecurity, specifically as it relates to kids in this case. I supported the Children's Services Council heavily when it was on the ballot. I campaigned for it. 66% of the voters in this county voted to approve it, which means that we've got up to $8 million a year going into badly needed services to help our kids. I think that the Children's Services Council to date has done a good job of reaching out to citizens. I know that because I've been in those meetings and I've seen those conversations. What we need to do is make sure that that conversation continues, because they need to hear from parents and teachers and others about what we can do to help our kids. Thank you.
Okay, and Commissioner Minor, the second question, again, you'll have 1 minute to respond. How could the funding of children's services and programs for Leon County be improved?
I think it's too early to say. I mean, we have, as I said before, they are able to get about $8 million a year from Leon County to help out with children's services. And so they are still in year 1. They're in the midst of completing the needs assessment required by state law. And so the jury's still out. We need to see how it goes, where that funding gets applied. I know many of the folks on the council itself. I know that they're putting a high priority on making sure that our taxpayer dollars are used in a way to get the biggest benefit. The cost benefit is most important. So where can we invest that money so that it does the most good for kids in Leon County?
Okay, thank you, sir. And your final question on this topic, you'll have 1 minute. Would you be in favor of the funding for the council being increased to the full millage rate, which would be 0.5 millage? It's at 0.375 now.
I would. I want to make sure that the Children's Services Council has very solid, profound reasons for spending that money. But the voters approved it. And so I want to make sure that if we do that full amount, we need to make sure that CSC will apply those dollars in the best way to maximize the benefit for our kids.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Lamar, I'm going to ask you the same questions. You'll have 1 minute for each of these 3 questions. Do you think the current structure of the council provides sufficient input and guidance from the citizens of Leon County?
Well, thank you for the question. I think it's a good structure now, but we always need to be listening to the public and seeing what they want, because again, we work at the mercy of the public. And so if they want to see changes, then we need to make changes. One of the things that you brought up when you were introducing the topic was 62% of children not ready for kindergarten. One of the initiatives of my campaign is to start a program where we partner our local daycares with retired teachers so we can give children that opportunity to work with them, because I am a big advocate in education. My mother was a staunch preacher of it. And so I feel like the earlier you introduce them to small things, ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, shapes, letters, colors, things like that, the more they can comprehend later. And so we really want to push that initiative in that program to make sure that our kids in Leon County have an advantage, because they're going to be competing against people from all over the world. And we want to make sure that they're in the best position to be successful.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. Our second question. How could the funding of children's services and programs for Leon County be improved?
Well, whenever you have people appointed to a position, they're never going to be held to the same standard that an elected official will be held to. And so we need to make sure that we are working very closely with how funds are allocated, because these are property tax dollars. And when you look at how the taxes operate, we want to make sure that it's equitable. And so making sure that, you know, the kids in the 04 zip code, which according to the all-in report, from Sheriff McNeil, the Anatomy of Homicide report from Sheriff McNeil, is the poorest zip code in the county, and it's also one of the poorest zip codes in the state. We want to make sure that they are getting the opportunities that they need. So we just need to make sure that we work together. That's how we fix a lot of our problems, is working together and listening to people. That's the number one thing that we can do when we want to solve problems. Instead of talking a lot, let's make sure that we listen and understand each other, and that's how we solve our problems.
Wonderful. All right. Finally, Mr. Lamar, the last question on this topic. Would you be in favor of the funding for the CSE being increased to the full millage rate, taking it from 0.375 to 0.5 millage?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I remember, you know, we were talking about it when it was just created, and people are very excited about this program and about the opportunity that it is going to present. But I will say that people are now starting to say, we want to see the results. And so we got to start making sure that people are seeing the results from the money that they're investing. People do not mind paying an increase in taxes as long as they see a return on their investment. So we got to make sure that we're producing the results so that people can have the confidence in us to make sure we're allocating money properly. So yes, I would be in favor of it.
Great. Thank you so much. We're going to move now to another topic. We're going to talk now about growth management in Leon County. And you will both have go back to your 2-minute response time. Are we managing growth for the good of our community and the environment in Leon County, or is growth managing us? Mr. Lamar, I'm going to start with you here. What grade would you give Leon County regarding approved land use and development projects over the last 12 months? And you could give it from an A to an F. And please give us an example of a project to explain the reason for your evaluation.
Last 12 months is a narrow time frame. The last 12 months, I would probably give it like a B. But you start going back a little further, the grade would drop a little bit. So one of the things that we really want to guard against is urban sprawl. And an example of something that is against that with the infill is you look at those new houses they have on Benton Brook on Thomasville Road. Those are in the city. You know, it's not really it's not really increasing the traffic that's already on Thomasville Road. And so I would support that. You know, when you start branching out into the unincorporated area and just start cutting down trees, I wouldn't be in favor of those things, especially when you have people out there who they buy land for the reason of wanting that space. And so again, building homes without and cutting down trees and without talking to the people that are in that area is something that I would not be in favor of. We really have to do a better job of listening to our constituents and what they want. And that's something that I'm really pushing in my campaign. And people have really said that they are tired of feeling ignored.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Minor, I'm going to ask you the same question. What grade would you give Leon County regarding approved land use and development projects over the last 12 months from an A to an F? And then please give us an example of a project to explain the reason for your evaluation.
Thank you very much. I would give our growth management effort a B. We are very focused on doing what we can to encourage infill. The issue is that not all infill is something that is something that developers want to develop on. And so it's trying to cajole and persuade them to go ahead and take some of these vacant lots and some of these buildings that can be renovated. The challenge for them is that often it's more profitable for them to go outside the urban services area, out in the rural areas and build. And we've always got to check that. We've got to try to encourage that more of infill. One good example that I'm proud of is the work we're doing on the apartments at Orange Avenue. We've basically taken that project, we're renovating that to create more affordable housing for people. And that's a good example of taking infill, renovating property that needed to be renovated, and then creating decent quality affordable housing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, we're going to turn now to the North Monroe Corridor Project. This is a segment of North Monroe between Fred George Road and Tharp Street. You'll each have 2 minutes to respond to this. This project addresses 3 goals: make corridor improvements, streetscaping and placemaking, respond to crime and human trafficking, and 3, respond to homelessness. This project is designed to enhance the quality of life and safety for residents, businesses, community organizations, and stakeholders, and also including travelers and visitors to our community. Commissioner Minor, let me start with you. What monies have been allocated toward accomplishing this project, the North Monroe Corridor Project? What is the associated timetable? And then please describe your efforts to date and some of the improvements that will be made to achieve those 3 stated goals. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. You know, we've all been talking about North Monroe because I started this whole process about 3 years ago. I initiated the idea of working on North Monroe to address the problems we've got. It's the #1 gateway into Tallahassee. More people come into the North Monroe I-10 interchange to come to Tallahassee than any other point in the county. But crime, homelessness, blight are rampant. I've been working with neighbors, businesses, my commission colleagues, and I'm proud to say we've made real progress by obtaining full funding for the North Monroe Blueprint project to improve North Monroe. I created the North Monroe Task Force with support of my colleagues, and we incorporated their recommendations into the Leon County 5-year strategic plan. So it's part of what we're going to track for the next 5 years is the work that the county is doing with its partners to improve North Monroe. I also, as I said earlier, I helped obtain funding for the free online anti-human trafficking training program available to anyone that might be listening. And then finally, I called for the creation of a new community redevelopment agency, a CRA for North Monroe. That'd be a way for us to take even more dedicated funding without an increase in taxes and dedicate that funding to make infrastructure investments to North Monroe. We're doing a lot of great work on North Monroe. I've been leading that effort with many neighbors and businesses and other partners. We've got a lot of work to do. North Monroe's decline started many, many years ago. It's going to take us some time to switch it around, but we are turning that corner and making improvements. It's going to be something we will be proud of. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Lamar, let's switch to you now on this. Based on what you know about the North Monroe Corridor Project, do you support these efforts to address physical improvements to the corridor and the stated goals of responding to crime, human trafficking, and homelessness? What other ideas may you also suggest? And you have 2 minutes, sir.
Thank you for the question. So right now on the North Monroe Corridor, like there is absolutely nothing is being done. Nothing is being done. And so it's one of the biggest complaints that I get when I knock doors is people say, what is going on with this task force that he created? the details are so important when you start looking at policy, right? So when you actually read this report, it gave recommendations such as if a street light is out, we need to replace it. If lines are faint on a street, we need to paint them. Then it looked at homelessness and crime and said, oh, we're doing everything great. We shouldn't do anything. It didn't make any recommendations. And so it just said, just keep doing what we're doing. And so that's why nothing's gotten done, because this really hasn't been a priority to the current commissioner. And he's not a bad guy. I want to make that very clear. Not a bad guy. He just hasn't gotten anything done on the most pivotal issue that is facing our district. So what we need to do is have new leadership, somebody that's going to focus on homelessness. We talked about it earlier. We need to provide housing so we can provide treatment, if that's mental health treatment, that's substance abuse. But ultimately, our goal is to get them out of temporary housing and to permanent housing of their own. When we start talking about crime, we have to look at the factors that contribute to crime. So we got to look at poverty. We got to look at unstable housing, and we've got to look at a lack of educational opportunities. Those are the things that contribute to crime. So if we focus on those areas, we will reduce crime. If we focus on providing stable housing for people who are unhoused, we will reduce homelessness. So we have to have a dedicated approach to doing that. And the details are so important, especially for homelessness. We could look at some of these blighted areas, some of the abandoned hotels, some of the abandoned apartment buildings, and making sure that we rebuild those, and we could use those for housing the homeless. We could also use them for affordable housing, but there are several uses we could use for infrastructure that's already in place.
Thank you, sir. We have time for one final question before we go to our audience participation. This last subject is on good government. You'll each have 2 minutes to respond to this. And Mr. Lamar, we will end with you going first on this topic today. One of the difficulties of rooting out corruption, favoritism, inefficiency, and other problems in government is that employees who know about it fear retaliation when they talk about it. One solution is a strong whistleblower protection. Would you support whistleblower protection for county employees and employees of affiliated agencies such as Blueprint? And we'll start with you, Mr. Lamar.
I absolutely would support whistleblower protection. We can even see at a national level how important it is to have whistleblowers and people who have the courage, because it takes a lot of courage to come out publicly and speak out against some of the things that have been spoken out against on a national level. But one of the things when you want to stop corruption and you want to stop favoritism is you have to start looking at campaign contributions. Who is giving money to these candidates? Because that's who they respond to, right? That's the reason why we have more votes on development than we do homelessness and crime. It's because the developers are the ones who fund campaigns. And when you fund campaigns, guess what? Your voice is heard, and your voice is heard first. So if you want a government that works for the people, then you need to elect a candidate that works for the people, and a candidate who doesn't accept contributions from developers. I have not accepted one penny from a developer, and I'm so proud of that. We are completely people funded, and not just my campaign, but my staff. My staff is completely people funded. These are all wonderful people who I met knocking doors, and we really made a connection, and we decided to work together on my campaign. And it's one of the things I'm most proud of is my grassroots effort. And that's why my campaign is really surging at this moment, because people want a candidate who is really focused on them, and they say, that's me. And I agree.
Thank you, sir. All right, and that will take us to Commissioner Minor. You get to finish our topic here, our question here, and then we'll go to some audience questions. But for you, sir, one of the difficulties of rooting out corruption, favoritism, inefficiency, and other problems in government is that employees who know fear retaliation. One solution is strong whistleblower protection. And would you support whistleblower protection for county employees and employees of affiliated agencies such as Blueprint? Commissioner Minor, you have 2 minutes.
Great, thank you. Let me address my opponent's attack first on donations. I've gotten about almost 400 donations from people across a very broad spectrum of the community: teachers, retirees, state employees, artists, architects, IT folks, you name it. My opponent has received about 50 donations. That's not including the donations he's made to himself. So he's raised about $11,000, but $7,400 of those dollars are contributions from himself to benefit his campaign. So, money's not everything in campaigns. It shouldn't be, but it's a good indication of where your support is. I've got very broad support. My opponent has very little support. And part of that is probably because he just hasn't lived here in Tallahassee, but for 2 years. I mean, my freezer's right there. I've got food in my freezer that's been in here longer than Joey Lamar has lived in Tallahassee. Now let me go ahead and answer the ethics question. I totally support whistleblower protection. I've been a big advocate for ethics in our county government. I actually led an effort to strengthen ethics and to make them stronger so that our elected officials and our county officials are held more accountable. I also believe in transparency in government. So I led the effort in the county to reform our lobbyist registration system so that citizens had more transparent data to look and see who was lobbying our government. After I accomplished that, I introduced that to Blueprint so that we had similar lobbying reforms at Blueprint. So I've been a leader when it comes to ethics and transparency, and I've got the evidence to show it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
May I respond quickly to
Yes, I will give you 15 seconds. How about that, sir?
All right, thank you. So it's interesting that my opponent thought I was attacking him in my last response because I wasn't. I literally was not attacking him, but that says a lot about where he is on his campaign contributions and where he takes money from if he felt that was an attack. And so again, I would admonish him to make sure to know that the entire county is watching to make sure that his conduct and his character are reflective of what he wants everybody to see.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, candidates, for your responses to all of my questions today. But it's time for us now to turn to the people who have been patiently waiting their turns. We're now going to go to the section where we take questions from members of our audience. We'd love to see all of our viewers during this time, so please allow your video now, those of you watching at home. Bring up the lights, so to speak. If you have a question and you have not already done so, place your question in the chat feature. If you want to ask your question live, use the raise your hand function and make sure you've allowed video on your Zoom. You'll have 1 minute to ask your question, and each candidate will then have 1 minute to answer. My co-hosts are going to let me know who's got a question. I'll call your name for the question. They'll unmute you and make sure your question is applicable to both candidates, please. Okay, so let's see who is first. I believe the first question we have is from Susan McLeod, who has a question about waste pickup.
I had just mentioned that I'm still really disappointed in our waste pickup program. And I just wanted to know, I know there's a difference between city and county, but what is the county planning on doing with, waste pickup? And I mean, trash, recycling, we can only do so much about because there's only, so much end use of it. So, we can skip that. And the yard waste, I'm really concerned about the yard waste. The downed branches, there's branches in this city that were downed in Hurricane Irma. They're still down and they're still clogging our streets, especially in the county. So that's my question. Waste management, yard pickup.
Commissioner Minor, let's start with you. You have 1 minute, sir.
Thank you very much. Susan, it's good to see you. I totally agree with you. We talked about Waste Pro at the last county commission meeting, and the Democrat did an article about it. You're paying for Waste Pro service at a certain level, and you're not getting that type of service. You're not getting the service that you have paid for. I hear about it from all the time. Both my chief of staff and I hear from folks that have not had their trash picked up in entire neighborhoods, right, and have not had their yard waste picked up in weeks. So what happens is that when we get a call like that, and this happens a lot, we reach out to our county staff. In some cases, I will call the manager of Waste Pro and tell them what is going on. And then usually within 24 hours, we get a response from Waste Pro and they pick up the trash. They pick up the yard waste. It's good that they respond. And I encourage anyone listening, you don't have to even live in District 3. If you're not getting your county Waste Pro pickup done, call us, we'll handle it. But that's not acceptable. You shouldn't have to call your county commissioner to get something done regarding your waste pickup. At the last meeting, I told Waste Pro, in case they were listening, that they are on notice. Their contract comes next year, and we're going to take a hard look at what other options we have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You went a little bit over, so I want to make sure Mr. Lamar has enough time to respond to that as well. You may start now, sir.
All right. Thank you so much. So I was knocking doors in the Lakeshore area, and I'll never forget. I knocked on this lady's door, and she's like, I'm having so much trouble with Waste Pro, and it was a repeated occurrence. And so some of the issues that involve Waste Pro are like the specifications, like if you want yard debris picked up, it's got to be 4x6, it's got to be stacked this way, certainly. And so if it's not, then they just kind of drive by. Other times people feel like they call repeatedly and they say, we'll put in a work order, and then they don't hear any response. So yeah, we need to make sure that we are evaluating Waste Pro, because that contract is coming up, and we do a thorough evaluation to make sure, whether or not we're going to renew that contract. The other thing is we could do some things ourselves. We could create a community mulch program and compost program for some of this green waste. So that way we don't put all the energy on them, but some of these things we can do ourselves. But Waste Pro is something that I hear a lot of complaints about on the campaign trail, is just making sure that they fit the specifications of the yard debris and some of the bulk items that need to be picked up.
Thank you, sir. We're going to turn now to a question from Steve Bean about multimodal transportation district. Mr. Bean, are you with us?
I am with you. Thank you.
Great. What is your question?
This is mainly to Commissioner Minor, because I'm responding to your answer, Rick, about the question about paving more and more roads and making room for more and more cars. And you said, well, one thing that's being done is the multimodal transportation districts. And my question is, what are the MMTDs actually doing to encourage people to get around other than on cars? I mean, I'm just not seeing the results there. It seems that developers are getting away with more, but I'm not seeing a real effect on alternate transportation. What's going on there?
Yeah, let me start with Mr. Commissioner Minor, since the question was specifically addressed to him, but we want to make sure to give Mr. Lamar also an opportunity to respond. But we'll start with you, Commissioner, and you have 1 minute.
Thank you very much. Steve, it's good to see you. Regarding within the multimodal transportation district, there've been, if you look around, there are enhanced bike lanes and turn lanes just for bikes. And so what the MMTD does within the boundaries of the MMTD is make sure, in some cases, we've actually taken away lanes that were previously allocated to cars and basically transfer them into bikes. So that's and I know you know what I'm talking about. If you look at the Civic Center, there's a good bike lane right there that they installed. God, time flies, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So those are the things that we're trying to do. It's mainly been a city of Tallahassee function, because it's the entire MMTD is within the jurisdiction of the city limits. But it's something that we're all focused on, and it's the kind of thing where we need to make sure, especially in these high dense urban areas, that we have alternative modes of transportation available for folks that want to use them.
Well, if I could just, can I follow up?
Yes, I'll give you 15 seconds, sir.
It seems like very little. I hear what you're saying. Something is being done, but it seems like not enough to actually get a substantial number of people to, say, ride bikes instead of drive cars. What do you think about that?
I think
let me give you, sir, about 10 seconds, and then I want to make sure Mr. Lamar gets the full opportunity to respond. Go right ahead.
Steve, I'm grateful for the work that's been done so far, but we need to do more. We need to do a lot more. And so I agree with you. I agree with the premise of what you're saying, is that we need to do more to encourage more bikeability within the urban area, as well as through major arteries that we have throughout the county.
I'm unmuted.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Lamar, I'll give you 1 minute 15 if you need it.
Okay. It's good to see Steve again. I met Steve at we were at the they were looking at what to do with the North Monroe Center about the new police station. I met Steve there. We had a great conversation, and I'm going to be at his environmental debate that's coming up in August. So good to see you again, Steve. One of the issues that we're having is we have to be honest with ourselves. And right now, we just are not a pedestrian-friendly city. And the problem is we keep building around cars instead of building around people. And so we need to focus our efforts on building around people instead of building around cars. And so that's where our focus should be when it comes to that type of infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We're going to turn now to a Facebook question. What surveys have been commissioned to find out what the needs of the disabled are in our community with regards to assistance during hurricanes and possible power outages? That's a highly relevant question right now, and I'm going to start with Mr. Lamar. 1 minute, sir.
All right. Another big concern I get, I feel like I get a lot of big concerns, so I'm knocking these doors. Another big concern I get is people are really concerned about, trees on power lines and how that could affect them during storms and the power going out and how long it's going to be out. You hear people say, we need to put the lines underground, and there are some areas where the lines are underground. But it might be too big of an expansive project to try to put every single line on the ground. And at some point, you have to come from underneath the ground anyway. But yes, that's a really big thing. And for people who are disabled, we do need to make sure that we are looking at our tree management, and so that we don't have trees that fall down, and so they blocks the entranceway. You look at Hunter's Crossing on Lakeshore. If a tree went down in that on that entryway, it would be very hard for any type of ambulatory vehicle to get back to them to get them the help that they need. So those are things that we definitely need to look at, and I'm going to do that.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Minor, same question to you. What surveys have been commissioned to find out what the needs are of our disabled when it comes to assistance during hurricanes and possible power outages? And you have 1 minute, sir.
Thank you very much. Our county, I think, does a very, very good job tending to the needs of folks during power outages and hurricanes. And we devote specific resources to helping folks with disabilities. If you are disabled and have issues with mobility, let us know at the county. We actually keep a record of that so we can make sure we do wellness checks for folks during outages and hurricanes. After a hurricane comes through our area, we actually send our staff to go out and assess damages. And when we're doing that, we also check on our folks, our citizens. So we've got a good plan for that. We've got one of the best emergency management departments in the entire state of Florida. And another thing that I want to bring up is conversations I've had with people here about how we are moving very fast and furious towards sustainability practices, all electric vehicles and plugins and that type of thing. And that's a good thing. We need to do that. But while we're doing that, we need to make sure we accommodate people with disabilities. Teslas are not designed for people who need to use wheelchairs. It is very expensive to outfit a van for someone that needs to have a wheelchair to get around. That's inherent inequity in our entire system. So as we get forward, I know I'm going over time, but we need to really think about that as we move toward a more sustainable future to make sure they also include the needs of those with disabilities.
Thank you, sir. We're going to turn now to someone who is in our audience who brought up an issue about staff relations. Shirley Zahn, are you with us? You asked a question about deference to staff recommendations versus making their own independent investigation and arriving at decisions there. Are you with us? Ms. Zahn, can you unmute yourself? Can you unmute yourself?
I'm pushing the ask to unmute button, but I'm not getting
We got
any
you.
response. No, that's me. This is Kim talking. I'm trying to get Shirley.
Okay,
I'm not
I got it.
Okay.
Okay, there we
Yeah,
go.
I wanted to ask, how much should the elected official defer to the staff decisions and recommendations and in line with their own investigative efforts? Thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner Minor, let's start with you. You have one moment, 1 minute.
Sure.
Here.
Sure.
Almost as good.
Staff recommendations are meant for, they're supposed to be meant for issues that maybe not that controversial. But what I really do my homework when it comes to issues that are presented to us on an agenda. I'll meet with citizens. They'll reach out to me by email. We've got a newsletter in our county office that goes out to about 4,000 people. And we keep people informed on what issues are coming up. So having that communication with our citizens is really key. As I said earlier, I think I've got a reputation as being a commissioner who really listens to the folks that live in his district and throughout the county. So staff recommendation can be helpful, but you always need to look at what staff recommends with a critical eye and making sure that is what your voters need and want.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Lamar, same question to you. If elected, how much deference, I suppose, are you going to give to staff recommendations versus how much investigation would you tend to conduct on your own? And you have 1 minute.
Oh, thank you for this very important question. Right now, we rely too heavily on staff recommendations. The current commissioner is basically a rubber stamp. Anything that comes across his desk, he does whatever staff tells him to do, which is why you saw him vote for the Thomasville bike path and then change his vote, which is why you saw him vote for Doe Campbell Stadium and then change his vote. But for me, when I'm in office, I'm going to listen to you because that's very important. You should be listening more than you're talking. Then we're going to learn what is the best option of all the available options, not just what staff recommends, but things outside of what staff may recommend. And then we're going to lead. We're going to take decisive action to make sure that we accomplish the goals that we need to move our county forward.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Brooks,
I'm sorry.
mind if I respond to that really quickly?
Yes, you have 10 seconds, sir.
My opponent really is just making stuff up. At the last forum, June 23rd, he admitted he hadn't been to a single county commission meeting. Not one. He's running for office, but yet he doesn't want to do the work. So if you watch these meetings, you'll see I'm an independent thinker. I listen to what my voters and constituents are want us to have in the county, and I work to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Let me ask you the next question that's coming up. I do want to start with Commissioner Minor. How do you feel, do you support the IMC being under the Sunshine Law? You have 1 minute.
I think it should be under the Sunshine Law.
First of all, what would you, excuse me, sir, would you first start by explaining that term to anyone who's not familiar with it? IMC.
Oh, yeah. So the Sunshine Law is a state set of statutes that require elected officials and some county officials and also members of certain boards to have their discussions with each other in the sunshine. In other words, in a public meeting that has been announced.
I meant specifically IMC.
Oh, the
not Sunshine. Yeah.
Is a small group comprised of the county administrator and the city manager and the blueprint director to talk about decisions within blueprint. So
do you think that should be under Sunshine? I think is the question.
Yes. And my answer is yes. I think that it should be. I think there are many decisions that deal with large amounts of money that are not brought to the blueprint directors, myself and the other city and county commissioners. And I think having that under Sunshine would be a benefit to citizens.
Okay. Mr. Lamar, same question to you. Do you believe that the IMC should be brought under the Sunshine Law?
Thank you for that question. First, I want to respond to my opponent who said I haven't attended any commission meetings. Well, okay. I don't work a non-traditional schedule. I work at the Florida Abuse Hotline, taking calls from children who are victims of abuse and neglect and trying to provide them services. And my work schedule on Tuesdays is from 12 p.m. to 4 a.m. So I'm sorry that it doesn't fit your schedule, but I do go back and watch the meeting notes, and I do read the meeting notes. So I really didn't appreciate that, and for you to try to denigrate what I do, because I really value my work and helping other people. As far as Sunshine Law, I do think that, yes, more transparency is always good, and so I will always be in favor of more transparency.
Okay. Thank you, sir. We have another Facebook question. I'm going to start with Mr. Lamar, since he just concluded. What specific measures do you advocate to provide housing to low-income citizens in our community, sir? 1 minute.
So we talked about it a little bit earlier. There's a big difference, and I think right now we're kind of trying to commingle the two between homelessness and affordable housing. And those are two separate issues. And so right now, when we have these new homes being built, like you look at the homes out in Waalani, those homes are starting at $250,000, $300,000, and there are not a lot of people that can get those done. They can afford those, especially on a single person income or even a two-family income. So for single families, we need to make sure that we are creating homes that are one infill, so we're not creating contributing to urban sprawl, but making sure that we can set them at a price point where they're affordable, because people want to be able to establish themselves here because they love the city. But if you can't afford somewhere to live, then you're probably going to go somewhere else. And we don't want to turn people away who are good, hardworking citizens just because we have price pointed them out of affordable housing.
Sir. Commissioner Minor, same question. What specific measures do you advocate to provide housing to low-income citizens of our community?
Yes, thank you. It comes back to the question we had on affordable housing. We have been working, both the city and county commissions have been working to direct staff to bring back an inclusionary housing ordinance, working with the Florida Housing Coalition to encourage more affordable housing. We also are investing in properties like that Orange Avenue Apartments complex to renovate that and make it quality affordable housing for low-income families to live in. We're also taking a look, I mentioned this also at the same time, about CHIP funding, basically funding from the state that allows us to help finance more development for affordable housing. So we're working on all those things, as well as down payment assistance for families that are looking to buy their first starter home or just any type of affordable housing unit, as well as other programs we have to help people renovate or repair their homes right now to preserve the existing stock of affordable housing. So we're doing all those things to help folks that are really struggling right now to find housing that they can live in for themselves and their families.
Thank you so much, sir. All right, we are at the end of our Q&A portion that we are taking input from the audience. You have the candidates' contact details, I believe, at the beginning of the chat. So if you just scroll back up there, you can find any information you need about how to reach these two individuals and get more information that you may be seeking about their positions and their platforms going forward. I have one final question for both of the candidates. It's short, and I want you to answer it, please, in one sentence. Okay. I'm going to start with Mr. Lamar. Sir, if you're elected to the county commission, when you look back several years from now, what do you hope will have been your biggest accomplishment that made the most positive effect on the residents of District 3? One sentence answer, please.
The minute bond. I think the biggest impact that I would like to make would be on homelessness and affordable housing.
Sir. Commissioner Minor, your turn on the hot seat here. If you are reelected to county commissioner, when you look back several years from now, what do you hope will have been your accomplishment that made the biggest positive impact on the residents of District 3?
I hope citizens will look at me as someone who really listened to what constituents wanted and was able to revitalize North Monroe, improve Tharp Street, and work on some of the big issues within the county: crime, homelessness, affordable housing, and food insecurity.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir. Thank you both so much. I want to thank both candidates for their participation today, and I want to thank you, our audience, for attending. You have been wonderful. Thank you so very much. Your participation makes this much more meaningful, and we are very grateful for it. This has been our 5th Democratic Candidate Forum, the 5th of 9 forums in our summer series. These forums are going to be held every Saturday through August 13th for our important local elections occurring during the primary election cycle. We hope to see you at each and every one of them. You all have a wonderful weekend, and thank you for joining us.